because it's like a bunch of wild ass women that are willing to do this for money. We're gonna kind of be a little out there. We're gonna be rebellious and seeking excitement, and we're just on drugs. Hello, and welcome to Sex, Love, and Soul. I'm Mary Knight, and I'm so glad that you're here. I've been getting lots of emails and a few comments here and there wanting me to talk more about my time as an escort. And I actually really love talking about that time. And the reason that I don't is because that wasn't really the vision that I had for my channel. Because I didn't want the focus of my channel to be titillation. I wanted it to be more about helping y'all understand the things that I learned while I was an escort, while I was a madam, and to help y'all understand why you are having issues with women, the stories that men shared with me about why they were there with me instead of at home with their wives, where I thought they belonged. But I came to learn, oh, this is a very complex topic, and it isn't just about a man wanting to have sex with a willing, attractive woman who isn't his wife. And I've talked about that in some of my other videos, why nice guys turn to sex workers, and also about the one, he felt like a wallet and a sperm donor. But I will talk about my time as an escort. So this one email that I got, that really intrigued me. And thank you so much for sending this email. It was very detailed. And he was asking me about cam girls, what I thought about cam girls, what I thought about the effects of technology on culture and our sexuality. So this guy said that he started seeing cam girls after his divorce 4 years ago. And he's been steadily seeing cam girls since then. And that he liked porn and had been watching porn, but thought instead of just watching sex movies, I can actually have conversations with these women. And he said he noticed over time that they were becoming kind of withdrawn, kind of sullen. They seemed disconnected. And he was wondering if, I thought that was an effect of the work, like if that's just a natural progression of being a sex worker, is that over time you just become withdrawn. And I think that it was by nature exploitative, exploiting these women? And also, was it exploiting the men? So I have, of course, about 87 thoughts on that. I know a lot about sex work, and I know about the effects on both men and women. The camming stuff really started getting popular as I think I was already out of it. I retired coming up on 13 years ago now. And when I first started in 1999 was the first time I started working for an escort service. The internet was not what it is today. There weren't the websites for escorts. There were a few, I guess, but it wasn't common. How clients would find me was they would call the escort service that I worked for. And then my madam would send me out on calls to people on her client list. She said she had this client list, but now I know that it was just randos calling out of the phone book. But that's another story. It's so wild, wild. I was in Houston. I was 33, and I was working at a strip club. I was a waitress. My clients kept asking me to dance, and so then I became a dancer. And I was working a regular day job during the day. I was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then at night, I was working at the strip club. Once I started dancing, I was making enough money to quit my day job. So I quit my day job, got my youngest out of daycare because at that time he was 4. My other 2 kids were in elementary school. I was always there with them in the morning, getting breakfast, fixing their lunches, and getting them out the door to the school bus. But now I was home when they got home from school. I was able to be home with my little one all day. And that was amazing to me. To me, that was worth everything. It was worth everything that I did, everything that I went through. was worth it because I just wanted to be a mom to my kids. That's what was going on. So when I look back on that time when I first started escorting and then being this escort, I was a private dancer. I was a private dancer. I was not having sex with anybody. And I actually wasn't even giving anybody a hand job at this first escort service that I worked for. Okay, let me wind this back. When I was stripping, I never minded the work, but I hated working in the club. I didn't like the smoke because you could smoke in bars back then. And I didn't like the drunks. And I felt very exposed working in the club because I was working in what was basically a neighborhood titty bar. And I was afraid that my neighbors were going to come in. My old job that I had was not far from there. And I actually did have somebody that I worked with come in and see me. And that I'll tell that story another time because it's kind of a creepy story, but it's also kind of a funny story because it was like my worst fear was realized. After I had a former colleague or two come in and get dances from me, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too much. I felt very exposed in the club. And so my solution was to go work for this escort service. Now, the escort service, I was told, was a special kind of escort service where we were all private dancers. And when I went on the interview to become this hooker, I was so the woman she went by Jordan, who would become my madam. She told me, "Oh, there's no sex. We don't do that. Don't have sex with these guys. If anybody tries to give you any troubles, tries to pressure you into sex, when you're on the call me and I'll talk to them and I'll let them know that what they want is illegal. So no matter what you do, do not have sex with my clients." And I believed her. I didn't understand that she had to tell me that because I could have been law enforcement. And so I was so naive. Like I had never even been in a strip club before I went in to interview as a waitress. Never been in a strip club. And then so I go in a few short months, I go from waitress to stripper to escort. Well, private dancer. When I'm on these calls with these guys, I was showing up at their door and I was just doing what I did at the club. But I would do nude lap dances. I would give nude rub downs. I would do lingerie modeling. And I was really in great shape at that time. And so I was doing nude yoga poses and all this kind of stuff. And believe it or not, everyone was very respectful. No one tried to like grab me or touch me or do anything. It's just so wild, right? It was a really incredible time. And now when I look back on that, I really am shocked that how naive I was. That I believed what this woman said, that there was no sex, that men weren't expecting sex. And every single man that I saw was expecting sex. But I was able to, I was able to kind of talk them out of it. And I didn't know that the rate that we were charging people, the money that I collected from them, was the flat fee. And then if they wanted to do anything else, I was supposed to do what was called upsell. I had no idea. So I wasn't doing that. And here's the thing, men were seeing me over and over again. Even though we weren't having sex, I wasn't touching their penis. Nothing. And I had a lot of repeat clientele. I learned that it was because I was just so nice and so genuine that I didn't have this hustler vibe about me. So it wasn't like I was trying to get over on them. I just wasn't available to have sex with them for any price. I just wasn't. And I think that was how I was able to get away with it. Another way I was able to get away with it was because once I started meeting the other women who worked for Jordan, and I think there were like 20 or 30 of us, Me and one other woman were the only native English speakers. All the other women were Mexican, and they were Mexicans who were most of them were born in Mexico. And, these girls were hot. I'm not saying anything against these women at all, but they didn't speak good English. A lot of them were very stoned, like they reeked of weed, they reeked of cigarettes, they were obviously all pilled out. They were unkempt, right? They were these unkempt young women who, God knows what their circumstances were, how they ended up working for this escort service. I remember one time I went on this call where I was the only white girl. 5 guys wanted 5 girls, and they were having some kind of party. I had my own car, so I drive myself. If it was at a hotel, we would meet in the parking lot and wait for everybody to go inside, but this was at a house. I'm kind of sitting down the street a little bit in my car waiting for the other girls to get there. And it was a guy, like a middle-aged Mexican guy that had these 4 girls in the car, and they were all together. They all got out. They just, reeked of weed, had booze on their breath, and they were just high, so high. They had like broken fingernails and chipped polish, runs in their hose. They were a mess. I'll just say it. They were a freaking mess. And I'm there like, oh, these are the people that I work with. These are the other people that Jordan is sending out. No wonder these guys wanted to see me over and over again. It wasn't because they were Mexican. They were drug addicts. They were probably not doing this of their own free will. I don't know. I saw a lot of shit, of course, when I was working for Jordan, because she was what was called, I think I've referred to her before, as a middle-class madam. She wasn't high-end, but she wasn't super low-end. But when I had my own place, because I had a few escort services, I had like 3 or 4 escort services in different cities in Texas. And then I also, when I had the modeling studio, the Hoe House in Houston, I learned that, let's say, a third of the women that were working in these modeling studios had pimps. And that dude that dropped off those women, that guy was a pimp, obviously, especially because these women didn't speak good English and because they were so fucking high. And on calls like that, Jordan would have me collect all the money because she knew she could trust me. That was kind of what started happening, is that I kind of became the de facto manager and would collect whenever there was a multi-girl call, even a 2-girl call. She would always have me collect the money. I'm bringing this up about these other women because it showed me I could go to work for another escort service and I could make more money. And my madam was a real fucking cunt. She was awful. She was such a terrible person. She was definitely some kind of sociopathic weirdo. And in some ways, I'm really glad that she was, because I learned a lot from her about the industry. And then she taught me how to stay safe. And I think she knew she had to be a giant bitch, or we would ignore her, right? Because it's like a bunch of wild ass women that are willing to do this for money. We're gonna kind of be a little out there. We're gonna be rebellious and seeking excitement, and we're just on drugs. I did finally leave her, and then I went to work for this high-end escort service, and my experience was completely different. I think it was 2001, 2002. It was porn stars who would have these cam sites, and they weren't even doing it live. I don't even know if that technology existed publicly for people to do stuff like that live, but they would have videos behind a paywall. I remember that was kind of the extent of it. And then in 2007, I remember I worked with some women who had a cam show, and it was their advertisement for their escort services that they provided. I befriended a woman who was only a cam girl, and she had never done any kind of up close and personal sex work, like prostitution, straight up prostitution. She was a very cool person. She was very gentle and very sweet. And like a lot of women that I know of in the camming world have boyfriends. And they have boyfriends that they support. I'm not saying all of them, but that was what was going on with all of the women that I knew that did that. And it was actually their boyfriends, and I say boyfriends in quotes, that got them into that too. And I think that that's where the exploitation of the men can come in, the men being clients, comes in because you think that you're helping out this poor girl, and actually you're helping her support some dude. And so I think that she's being exploited, and then the client is being exploited by this boyfriend slash pimp guy. And of course, I'm not saying all of them, but that's something that they're not going to tell you. Right? They're not going to tell you that. Some of them will, but most of them won't. A lot of them don't like to admit that that guy is a pimp, and that's his deal, and that it just so happens that he understands her and is okay with what she does because his last girlfriend was a stripper, or he dated this porn star. Right? So there's a whole subset of guys where they love dating women who are in these highly sexualized occupations, and they get off on knowing that they get to hang out with you for free when all the other guys have to pay. So that's a thing. I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to create another video that will be released right away so I can continue on with my story. Okay. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. Also, go check out my book, How to Turn Nice into Your Sexy Superpower, at sexloveandsoul.com. Also, if you're wanting coaching, you can contact me at sexloveandsoulcoaching.com. The site that I have up talks all about men who are trying to understand their bond with a sex worker, because those are the men who are calling me. You want to talk about a current bond or a past bond with a sex worker, and you're trying to understand your feelings. You're trying to understand if she can really have feelings for you. You're trying to understand if this actually can be real. So if you're interested in getting coached on that, you want to run your situation by me, you want to get my thoughts, hit me up, sexloveandsoulcoaching.com. Thank you for listening. Wait for that next video. Okay, bye for now.